How is this still going on? This verse been going for way too long. If you're blind, you can see that this is wrong. And I won't comply. Not me, no way.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on. As usual, tragedy in Saskatchewan yesterday. 10 people were killed, 15 people were injured. 2 suspects are on the loose. I haven't heard any official word that they've been captured or killed, although I've heard rumors that both have happened, but no guarantees. So an awful tragedy, and we'll look at that, which is just unbelievable and unfortunate. Convoy hacker, the guy who hacked Give, Send, Go, or GoFundMe, I think it was GoFundMe he hacked, is living in his car. Interesting. The RCMP seized all of his stuff. Very interesting. He's talking about lawyers, etc. So I'll show you that video. Lockdown set to return. I do think they're going to try. Vaccine push is ramping up. Yeah, they're going to try and say everybody has to be up to date on their vaccine or you're excluded from society, like those evil anti-vaxxers we all hated so much last year. I think that they're going to go there. Government wants to do more about the economy, about the cost of living crisis, and of course, do more. By do more, I mean spending more money, printing more money, and spending more money on targeted groups to buy votes. That's what they're going to do. It has nothing to do with helping people with cost of living. It means we're going to print money and or reallocate other people's money to these targeted groups to make sure the Liberals buy votes. They stay in power. That's exactly what they're going to do. So yeah, boo, boo. All right, let's get into this. There's lots to get to. So happy Labor Day as well. Today's Labor Day. So the tragedy in Saskatchewan notwithstanding, I hope that you're having a good Labor Day. And before we get into it, if you want to support the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. You can check out the forums. They're free. You could do a one-time payment or a monthly subscription. You could buy some merch, Bingo Bango Bongo mugs or Lying Liars mugs or whichever mugs. There's lots of them. And you can check out my book if you're interested in that. You can sign up for Kitchen Table Talks. I think they're going to come back. I think they're going to be on Sundays, and I think they're going to be at 1 o'clock. So it's tentative. We'll see, but I think that's what's going to be happening. So if you want to sign up for that, check out here. And if you shop on Amazon and you want to support the show, but you don't want to send me money directly, that's fine. Click here and that will support the show. I promise you. You can head over to locals as well to support the show that way. And if you want to see all the links I'm using before I build the show, you can check out CanadaReport.co. Okay, let's get into it. Saskatchewan, what happened? Here's CP24. They say Saskatchewan Premier says flags will be at half-mast, 1 day for each life lost. And here's the news article on that. I was going to go through it, but I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole. Miles Sanderson was known to police, and I'm going to show you that, but this is Diverge Media's thing. But first, I'll let you know what's happened. Here's Mickey, and she says, Saskatchewan RCMP believe the suspects may now be in Regina, asks residents to be on the lookout for a Nissan Rogue 119 MPI license plate and consider sheltering in place. I'm heading to the Melford area and will provide any updates that may arise. Follow Canadian Press News for updates. And don't use me for up to the minute or anything like that with this. This is yesterday afternoon. And as far as I know, this morning, the suspects are still at large. Nobody's found them. I've heard rumors that the suspects have been shot, but I don't know. The rumors are absolutely not corroborated by anything meaningful. It's ridiculous Twitter stuff and people arguing about that. So I would not put much faith into that. The official line that I've heard as of 6 minutes before I started the show was that they were still at large with no update from the RCMP forthcoming with regards to them. But here's Diverge Media, and they say Miles Sanderson, one of the suspects in the Saskatchewan stabbing spree, appeared on Crime Stoppers wanted list. And here's his image right here in the corner here. And I'll show you a better image. So this is Sanderson here from the RCMP in May 27th, 2022. The RCMP should know this. They should absolutely 100% know this. Here's the picture from the CP24. Okay, so there's Miles Sanderson, CP24 picture. Here's the May 27th picture of Sanderson. And they appear to me to be the same person. Okay, and Miles Brandon Sanderson was unlawfully at large, so he had escaped somewhere. 32 years old, 5'10", 239 pounds. Last known location was in Saskatoon. Okay, so that's who Mr. Sanderson was in May. And here is the Sask Today update 12 hours ago. So this is 8:16 p.m. roughly. Not really 8:16, but That's 12 hours from right now. 10 dead, 15 injured. RCMP doing door-to-door searches. First Nations declares emergency. Social media on James Smith Cree Nation has lit up. Tiara posted that the suspects went into the homes and stole her brother's black Nissan Rogue, and others said the two suspects were kicking in doors of residents' homes. This hasn't been confirmed by the RCMP. RCMP are conducting door-to-door searches, door-to-door residence checks, on James Smith Cree Nation, and the nation has declared a state of emergency after 10 people were killed and 15 more injured following attacks on the First Nation today. People say the attacks occurred at 13 different locations. Two suspects are Damian Sanderson and Miles Sanderson. Damian Sanderson is 5'7", 155 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Miles Sanderson is 6'1", 200 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. JSCN leaders said that the attacks occurred in the early morning hours of September 4th. 2 emergency operations centers have been set up to provide health support to the communities. So just an awful tragedy, and what a horrific thing to happen. The politicians are starting to weigh in on it. Justin Trudeau jumped all over this 12 hours ago as that report was being released. He's releasing this tweet. The attacks in Saskatchewan today are horrific and heartbreaking. I'm thinking of those who have lost a loved one and those who were injured. And Viva Fry says, the country you're supposed to be governing is rapidly turning to chaos. Your apologies for the current state of affairs are not just useless, they're insulting. And yeah, the legal system is partially to blame. There's here talks about Vincent Waugh, who tampered with his home surveillance device because he was supposed to be going to court on arson and some other related charges, burglary, etc. I think burglary, mischief under 5. Oh no, that's for removing his ankle bracelet. He was supposed to be going to court on these charges. He was given an ankle bracelet to be at home instead of out in public and had a curfew, but he took the ankle bracelet off. So our system is flawed in a way that we're trusting criminals to behave in a civilized way, and we're not taking into account their recent criminal history. You just broke the law? Okay, don't do that again. Go home and think about it. You don't do that again. Wear this on your ankle. Is that going to really be impactful? Oh, you've committed gun crime. All right, well, you go home and you think about it, right? You're going home to bail, and if I see you again, I'm going to let you out on bail because our justice system is a joke. And so I think the way that the Trudeau government is at fault in this is pressuring people to use other means of dealing with criminals when the criminal is not showing any indication that they're willing to change their behavior. If somebody's changed and they want a chance, I'm not opposed to giving somebody a chance. For sure. I would love to give people a chance, but some people just want to watch the world burn, to paraphrase Alfred, right? Right. So yeah, I mean, like you can't just let people out. It's unbelievable. And without any kind of checks and balance, or the check and balance being some kind of racial diversity checklist, because that's what they are using. It's unbelievable, but they are. So here's Lori Goldstein. Let's talk about the convoy just a little bit. Two kind of related stories. The hacker and the RCMP thought that those within their own ranks would betray the RCMP to the convoy. And that's crazy. I think that is absolute. You guys were friends, and so we're worried that operationally you're going to leak. You're going to leak this to your friends. It is, I think, finding a traitor under every uniform. That's a communist society, right? That seems like you're watching a James Bond flick, and you don't know who's the good guys yet and the bad guys. Everybody could be a double agent, right? There's bad guys everywhere. They seem paranoid. These people seem round the bend nuts and paranoid. Here's Lori Goldstein. He says, the fact that the federal government couldn't trust its own police force is not a great reason to invoke the Emergency Act. RCMP feared Mounties might leak operational plans to convoy protesters. Documents the potential exists for serious insider threats. If the Mounties knew what was going on was bad and against the law, and they weren't willing to go along with it, invoke the Emergencies Act, then they'll have to go along with it. Unbelievable. The RCMP feared that several Mounties sympathetic to the convoy protest against pandemic measures in Ottawa earlier this year might leak operational plans to protesters, says an internal threat advisory obtained by CBC News. The potential exists for serious insider threats, says the February 10th advisory from the RCMP's ideologically motivated criminal intelligence team. Did you know that we had that? Very interesting, don't you think? Holy smoke. I think it's, at one point, when George Bush was the president and the people in Iraq were abusing the Iraqi citizens at Abu Ghraib, and the Al-Qaeda, the accused Al-Qaeda people and all of that, they were dehumanizing them and torturing them and all sorts of stuff. There was a big push to demonize ideologically motivated incidents. And so when they say that, that's what you're primed for, right? Does that make sense? And because you haven't updated your priming, they're now priming ideologically motivated hate is white people, I think, generally saying, hey, what's going on here is racist. That's it. That's all the checkbox they need for ideologically motivated hate. They're saying honking is hate, right? They were comparing honking to Zeke Heil. They were in the House of Commons in the Senate. They were making these allegations. The Diagolon, it was uttered in the same sense. They're creating an insurrection. They were saying this whole thing was absolutely, completely blown out of proportion and misrepresented on purpose. But it's just wild that the RCMP has this ideologically motivated group, and they were worried that people within their own ranks were going to leak to the convoy. What does that tell you about them? I think it tells you a lot about them. I think it tells you they're paranoid as all get out. It's crazy. Okay. Those who have not lost their jobs but are sympathetic to the movement and their former colleagues may be in a position to share law enforcement or military information to the convoy protests. On its face, I don't disagree, but are you really going to risk, if you haven't left your job, are you really going to risk your job for your buddy who did and who's fighting the good fight, etc.? Maybe you are. I mean, maybe you are, but I don't know that should, if you've identified 6 or 7 people, I mean, that you say these guys are likely to leak this, then would you not, as a person who's in charge of the operation, say, okay, take those people out of the loop, right? Simple. Don't give them the opportunity. Put them on, bullshit detail somewhere else, doing something else, and that's that, right? Like, it seems like a simple solution to me. Or were there more of them than the RCMP could deal with? And it didn't seem like it. They brought in a whole lot of cops. There were a whole lot of police officers there that didn't seem too upset about assaulting Canadians, assaulting anybody, anywhere, breaking people's car windows for stopping in Ottawa. Was that an emergency? Stopping on the road, right? Is stopping on the road an emergency in Canada? There's who's got an IED, right? Improvised explosive device, right? I don't know. It's a very, very sick thing that's going on in our country right now. The document obtained by CBC News through access of information request shows the RCMP worried that some of their own might cooperate with the protests who barricaded the streets in downtown Ottawa for weeks. They didn't barricade the streets. There was always a lane open. There was always room to move, and they worked with the police in the city to make sure. And there were deals being made. This is misrepresenting what's happened. This is the CBC rewriting the narrative, okay? And they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. Period. Anyway, back to this. It was well documented during the protest that some key convoy supporters had previous ties to law enforcement, among them a former RCMP officer who was on the Prime Minister's security detail and a former military intelligence officer. So this is justification for the speculation that somebody might leak this. Bullshit. That sparked concerns within the RCMP's ideologically motivated, blah, blah, blah. Convoy supporters formerly employed in law enforcement and the military have appeared alongside organizers and may be providing them with logistical and security advice, which may pose operational challenges for law enforcement should policing techniques and tactics be revealed to convoy participants, said the unit's advisory. Barbara Perry, director of the Center on Hate, Bias, and Extremism, said it's no surprise that the RCMP was worried about members leaking information to convoy participants. This is hilarious, by the way. Quote, we have to look at what we do know about sexism, misogyny, and racism within the RCMP, and that those are the bread and butter of the far-right movement, she said. What? What utter nonsense. This is being printed in the CBC as news, hard-hitting news. It's garbage. Perry said that the researchers have been able to delve into extremism in the Canadian Armed Forces, but researching extremist ties in law enforcement has been harder. The thin blue line is alive and well, and police are very reluctant to speak about these sorts of issues, she said. Yeah, shocking. What a ridiculous thing. What a ridiculous article. It's funny, and I think it tells more about the RCMP than it tells about the convoy or anything else. Paranoid as Justin Trudeau is. Here is Misunderstood. And she says, alleged anonymous hacker Aubrey Kernston Cottle, no, I don't know how to say his middle name, and I'm not going to try again, who bragged about doxing the Convoy donation list and working with government, now living in a car and begging for money after the OPP seized his devices, says they should be thanking me. So here's part of the video. Yeah, he seems humbled a little bit. Here's just a little bit of the video. If you want to watch the rest of it, links in the description.
They know I'm anon. Obviously, that's why they came and raided me. Like, geez. Yeah. It's not like, I'm not all over the fucking press for it.
So he's on a live stream talking with people who are asking him about it. And then here's another live stream from his car. And and then he gets out and he's smoking.
I'm not going to discuss what they may or may not allegedly be investigating or looking into. I'm sorry. If you have questions like that, direct them to my attorney.
So he seems like he's not sitting in front of his computer bragging and feeling like he got away with it. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll see. Do you think that justice will be served on the GoFundMe hacker? Do you think? Or was it Give, Send, Go? Give, Send, Go hacker? Either one. He hacked the donation list, and I can't remember which one specifically, so apologies about that. Here's a concerning report out of the UK. Daily Mail is reporting FedEx delivery network is on the brink of collapse because rising costs have pushed contractors to the brink of bankruptcy. Owner of delivery truck fleet warns. FedEx ground delivery contractors have been demanding higher pay and changes to operations with profit margins squeezed due to inflation. So this is weaponizing the workforce against the employer by saying you owe me more money, while at the same time the fuel prices are peaking, etc. By the way, I was in Newfoundland for the last 10 days. In Newfoundland, the price of gas was falling, and I saw $1.67 before I left. And I thought, man, that's cheap. That's Ontario prices. And then we came and you reset what you think is cheap very quickly. It's unbelievable. But we came back to Ontario and I was driving home and I saw gas in the 139s. So gas prices are falling again. I don't know what to make of that. I really thought that they were going to double down and triple down and keep that gas artificially high. I think that they're going to, I've heard reports that in September, and we're in September, that the gas is going to become expensive again. But typically gas goes down in the wintertime and spikes in the summer. So will we see 130 to 150 gas for the next little while? I don't know. I have no idea, but it is confusing to me to see the gas prices recede like that. Are they backing off? I don't know. I really honestly don't know what to make of it. So let me know what you think in the comments. I don't know. It seemed like we were taking decisive steps forward towards this great reset plan. And with the gas receding, it seemed like they're abandoning it. And I don't know if there's another way to interpret that. A rope-a-dope, but why? Anyway, because the entire economy was going to collapse if gas stayed at $2 for an entire year. I mean, it would. No, maybe not. But it would put enough of a squeeze on people that the disposable income, people are already borrowing to eat and to pay energy prices, et cetera. They're seeing Europe go through the energy shock that's happening right now, the price shock, and it's going to get worse in Europe. There's no doubt about that. And Russia just turned off the Gazprom, citing mechanical issues. So they just turned that off. So I don't know how that's going to all go, but I think that it's going to galvanize people against it here. Are they getting ahead of that maybe to say, oh, we did everything we could to bring inflation down, and look, the interest rate hikes are working, et cetera, et cetera. Are the interest rate hikes working? Is it just that simple? Let me know in the comments. Really, honestly, I don't know. So let me know what you think. So, or give me some reading that can back me up on this a little bit. What do you think and why? Here is question period. This is the government saying we're going to spend more money in a targeted way to help people with the cost of living crisis. I don't think this is the right way to go, because basically it gives the Liberals carte blanche to spend whatever printed money they want on targeted demographics that perhaps otherwise wouldn't vote for them. And people have been saying snap election in the fall. Trudeau does like snap elections in the fall. It does happen. So who knows if that's true, but if they're spending this money under the guise of helping with inflation, that's a lot of money to campaign on and a lot of promises to make with a lot of printed money, right? And the other part of this, and it's only a minute long, is they're just starting to talk about this. This has been a problem for at least before the summer, since the airports and the passports and all of those problems. This has been a problem. So now they're just starting to talk about this. A little late, guys. A lot late, guys. Right? So that's a problem. Anyway, here's what they're talking about: inflation.
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has this $8.9 billion affordability plan she outlined in June. But inflation is 30-year high, and it's persistent. What new measures is your government going to do to help the affordability crisis? What are we going to see in September?
Evan, that's one of the main topics of conversation for our two-day cabinet meeting this coming week in Vancouver. We have put in place already a number of measures, from childcare to the Canada Child Benefit to increasing the old age security pension for seniors over 75 years old. But we think there can be more that the government has to do. We recognize the very, very understandable concern that Canadians have around these affordability issues. I've spoken to premiers across the country all summer about what provincial governments are doing, if there are measures that the Government of Canada can do that will be complementary. So this will be necessarily and properly the source of the discussion when I meet with my cabinet colleagues and the Prime Minister convenes the cabinet on Tuesday in Vancouver.
So we're going to talk about that soon, because, we know how important it is to people, but we didn't while it was happening. But now that we know it's happening, we'll talk about it. What nonsense. What garbage. CPC leadership. This is interesting. Andrea Mandel Campbell. I told you that I think that they're going to Joe Biden. I think the CPC is going to Joe Biden the CPC party. And how are they going to do that? They're going to say that Pierre Poilievre is a polarizing figure who's pitting Canadians against each other. That's what they're going to say. And here's the building of that narrative right here. This is a Toronto Star article. Can Pierre Poilievre contain the populist beast he's unleashed, right? And the polarizing conservative leadership frontrunner caught a tiger by the tail, and he may not be able to control what he has created. Now, Mr. Poilievre's push, his campaign slogan is take back control of your life, right? Right now, Canadians feel out of control of their lives, and he's giving you back control of your life. That's the cornerstone of his campaign messaging. So they're trying to claim he's a populist. He's caught a tiger by a tail. They're trying to equate him with being Trumpian, and it's not working. But that doesn't matter, because who counts the votes, right? I've heard reports that people who have signed up for memberships specifically to vote for Mr. Poilievre have not got their memberships, have not been able to vote, have not been able to finish the process because of various bureaucratic missteps, right? And you can request a ballot directly from the campaign, and the campaign will get it to you and all of that other stuff. But it really seems to me like the stars are aligning, like they're going to say, it's no wonder Mr. Poilievre didn't win, blah, blah, blah. These people who are supporting him didn't see these signals. It's nonsense. They're lying. They're creating the narrative. Here's what the Liberals are willing to do to make sure Poilievre doesn't win. Here we go.
Well, Evan, I'm a lifelong Liberal, but I joined the Conservative Party so I could vote because I felt like it was my civic duty to make sure that we were supporting candidates who care about the things we hold in common. Candidates who aren't just dividing us, who aren't setting provinces against one another like we see between Alberta and Quebec now.
But it's okay to say Canadians. It's okay to set Canadians against one another. Oh, if you're unvaccinated, or how do we deal with these people? Yeah, right. It's unbelievable. It's just, and I know I'm saying unbelievable too much these days. I've got to sort out something else, but I can't believe how brazen people are. Birdie says, By the way, almost half of us who bought CPC memberships didn't even receive them. This includes requesting reprints. It appears to be all a sham. I think they're going to Biden this election. Yeah, and yeah, I do. I really think they're going to. Here's talking about vaccines. I was talking about, I think we're going to go back into lockdowns. I'll illustrate that a little bit here. But here's Justin Trudeau talking about vaccines being up to date. And this is 3 days ago, according to Ryan. He says, what you're watching is not an old video of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pushing vaccines. This is from 3 days ago, pushing people to get up to date with the new vaccines. It seems as if he is threatening more restrictions if we don't comply, and I don't want him to keep me safe. Leave me alone. Here is Justin Trudeau.
One should get out and get vaccinated. If we are able to hit that 80, 85, 90% of Canadians up to date in their vaccinations, we'll have a much better winter with much less need for the kinds of restrictions and rules that were so problematic for everyone over the past years. But every step of the way, government's responsibility is to keep people safe, to prevent our healthcare systems from getting overwhelmed. And that's where individuals choosing to make sure they're up to date in their vaccinations with these new vaccines is going to help us all get through it and keep life open and free the way we want it to be.
What utter nonsense. What absolute garbage. It is not the federal government's job to deliver healthcare. It's not. The federal government's job has nothing to do with overwhelming hospitals or healthcare overwhelming. And all of the policies they've brought in have done nothing but harm and overwhelm hospitals because the staff have protocols they have to go through if they test for a disease they don't have and they erroneously test positive for it. And they've been accused by the hospital administration and by anybody with a brain of using the COVID protocols to take vacations if they don't want to come into work because reasons. And I don't blame them. I would do exactly the same thing because the management is insane. Somebody said, we've got a shortage of healthcare workers. I bet we don't have a shortage of healthcare administrators. And I thought, yeah, you're probably right. I think that we should fire all of the healthcare administrators who've caused this situation and then create a law or a rule, legislation that says healthcare administrators can't make more than the top nurse, and administrators' salaries are indexed to the nursing salaries, period. If the nurses take a cut, the administrators take a cut. See? So, fire them. Fire all of them. They have failed by any measure, but it's not the federal government's job to do that. It's not the federal government's job to implement restrictions on people. It's not the federal government's job to keep you safe even, really. It's their job to provide a police force that enforces the laws. That's not keeping you safe. That's enforcing laws. That's different, right? It's different. Fundamentally, it's different. The laws are written, debated, agreed to, should be generally, usually, unless they're done by edict by Doug Ford because of COVID rules, right? Oh, the new COVID rules are you've got to close your business. How about no? Right? No. People are done with this garbage because it didn't do anything but harm. It didn't do anything but damage our economy, unity, Canadian pride. What a disaster Trudeau's been. Golden Pup says a reported rate of 33 adverse events per 100,000 doses for children under 4 is high, especially when you consider that there's typically a reporting delay. It's only been approved for toddlers for about a month and already has a reporting rate higher than the 5 to 11-year-olds. So the adverse events following COVID-19 immunizations for the young kids, the under 4s, is coming in, and it doesn't look good. But Trudeau's still out there shilling for his pharmacy buddies, right? And that's concerning, don't you think? Here's a reminder. Back in July, there was a Catholic nurse who won her right to be exempt from COVID-19 vaccine. And so don't you think that other people have a right to make decisions about their body regardless of their religion? This is talking about how aborted fetuses were used in the technology to create this. And they really do a lot of work in the article to dismiss that as a valid concern, despite the fact that it's very clear in the Bible and used to be clear. They even trot the Pope out, right? If you had any questions about who the Pope's loyal to, well, read this article and then ask yourself who he's loyal to. Here's another thing that you need to be aware of and should be engaged in, I guess. Toronto teacher This is Toronto Teacher X. He says, aside from earning stars for wearing masks, my students will also be rewarded for encouraging their friends to do the same. I will be sure to give them praise for helping keep their friends safe. So he is encouraging peer pressure. That should not be allowed. People should not be allowed to do that. The politicization of this COVID stuff is so disappointing. That's better than unbelievable, right? And I am saddened by Canadians' embrace of this with so little. I mean, there's been a lot of pushing. Listen to the music we're subjected to. Listen to the media we're subjected to. Have you seen the new Game of Thrones or the Lord of the Rings? Both of them are hot garbage, I've heard. I haven't watched either because I've been too busy and I'm not really interested all that much. I think I'd rewatch the first season of Game of Thrones and pretend I don't know who's going to die. But the backlash is being silenced. I'm going to show that to you later. But it's super interesting how just because we're told to, or just because the critics say it's great, or just because we're told it's safe and effective, we have to listen to it, and we're not allowed to push back and say it's garbage, it's nonsense. And I don't want to teach our kids all that. I don't want to double down. I don't want to allow this to permeate and for this to be how society is, because wouldn't that just be sad? Wouldn't that just be terrible? It is terrible. It is terrible. Danny Taggart says, this is lockdowns. In Germany from October 1st, the streets will be patrolled by the military to prevent riots. This was announced by German Defense Minister Christina Lambrecht. Her name's Christine, and I know that because I looked it up. But this is Investment Watch. And so this is another article talking about the same thing, but I'm still not convinced. I don't know that this is an actual announcement, but we'll find out in October, I suppose. But Investment Watch says, from October 1st, German streets will be patrolled by the military to prevent riots. The German army will start patrolling the streets as of October 1st. Officially, this is not to enforce the new COVID measures of Health Minister Karl Lauterbach, but it is, of course, convenient, and it is also quite handy for when things get a bit cold and the Germans revolt. Germany's Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht and the Inspector General of the Army, Budweiser, right? I'm saying that terribly wrong, but that's what it was. Budweiser? No, there's no, I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong, but I'm going to continue saying it wrong. Announced a new army unit called the Territorial Commando. And here's the Territorial Commando. Okay, here it is. Right? So German Army Territorial Command. And the mission here is basically to support the German army on German soil, basically, what I understand it. Quote, it says, with the establishment of this word, I'm not even going to try, we are establishing a national territorial leadership capacity around the peace, crisis, war spectrum, the announcements read. In this way, we are creating a necessary framework conditions to better fulfill our various tasks and continue to make our contributions to the security of our country and the fulfillment of our alliance obligations. So Ed is saying the German army will assist law enforcement starting the 1st of October, resulting in platoons patrolling the streets and coinciding with the return of mask mandates for the unvaccinated only. I don't know if that's true. I can't find an announcement, a German announcement or an English announcement that says that. I found speculation on Twitter in this article, and that's pretty much it. And that's it. So do I think that that's true? No, not yet. However, this is Wall Street Silver. He says, in China, a drone with a loudspeaker and camera pointed at you appears. This community is in total lockdown now. Stay in your room. If you need a visualization of Orwell's 1984, this is as close as you can get for now. Here we go. 防控通知内容，严格执行居家隔离措施，做到人不出区，错峰取物，请广大居民群众切实履行个人防疫责任，遵守相应市疫情防控通知内容。Scary stuff. So, robot dogs have guns on their head. Robot drones have loudspeakers, and I'm sure there's a gun there. Maybe not, but soon there will be a gun, right? You've seen Terminator with the hunter killers, right? HKs. Yeah. So we're on track. We're right on time, it seems, right? Knight Commander of the Garter says, great lunch at the Swan and Hanley Swan today. Good food, friendly staff, but I'm never going back, nor will I care if they close this winter. Can you guess why? And they're transitioning into a cashless pub. Please be aware that we are a cashless pub. All major credit and debit cards, Apple Pay, Android Pay are accepted, and all you need to do is remember to bring it with you. Here is the thing with that. The cashless society, or this actually costs the pub more money. Every Interact transaction, debit card, credit card, any transaction like that, Apple Pay takes a percentage, Visa takes a percentage. So it costs, say your bill's, $40 or something like that. It's going to cost a percentage of your bill to process that payment through the payment server. Whereas processing your payment is done instantly if you give them cash. This doesn't benefit the pubs. What are they getting out of it? What are they getting out of it? Simplicity? I don't see it. I don't see it being simple. And the problem with the no cash option is that if you want to give someone, say, a cash gift or something like that, or a tip or something to that effect, they're not going to be. Are they going to be able to take it? If there's cash, they're not going to be able to. If your cash is useless, right? If you say here's $10 and your cash can't be spent anywhere, then it's useless. If you tip them, the government can see that for this $40 meal, you paid $50 because you're tipping the waitress or waiter or whatever, and they can track that. And if the waitress doesn't reconcile that on their taxes, they can say, hey, we saw you made that $10 tip and what's up, right? And we're going to audit you. So that's the problem with the cashless society. Not to mention they could say, you've had a lot of dinners out, maybe go to the grocery store. Your money's not going to work in the restaurants anymore. Or you've had too much fast food. Your money's not going to work at Taco Bell anymore. You've had too many burritos. So you've got to try a burger. Man, sorry about your luck. No, 6 burritos a week, no more, right? And that's it. You've done breakfast and dinner for 7 days. So that's it. You're done. Could they do that? Maybe. Alcohol? Sure. Cigarettes? Yeah, right? It's for your safety, comrade. Right? Don't you think? Oh, that's cholesterol. Those French fries are high cholesterol. You can buy the burger, but you can't buy the fries. You're welcome, right? SDGs. You can park farther away. Your electric car will die in the parking lot farther away. For your safety, comrade. Speech. I already kind of talked about this, but Amazon is blocking negative reviews of its woke Lord of the Rings series, and I just wanted you to see that. Zero Hedge is talking about how that impacts free speech. And I think it does. It really does, because it used to be that if the fans hated it, did anybody see the third Star Wars trilogy, the Rise of Skywalker? I can't remember the first one of the three. I went to the theater to see it because somebody I was working with wanted to see it. I thought, all right, sure, we'll go watch it. But it was terrible. And the whole last trilogy was terrible because they gave the property to people who hated it, basically, and they thought that if they slapped a Star Wars label on it, they'd watch it and be influenced by the woke nonsense that they were putting in there. If it was okay for Han Solo to be a little and what's his name, Lando Calrissian, to be a little gay, then who does it hurt type deal. And the thing is, the fans didn't like that, and so they handed the property over to people who hate it in order to insert virtue signaling and not put out an entertainment piece, but to put out something that is meant to influence people's thoughts and feelings on specific topics. And people rejected that because they don't want that. They want a story that they can see themselves in. And the percentage of people who identify that way is not enough to make that a compelling part of the story, right? You might be appealing to a really small sliver of people, but the masses just don't care. Either don't care, neutral, or don't care, get it out of the story, it doesn't matter, regardless. The Lord of the Rings, they did the same woke nonsense too, and people are pushing back on it. And it used to be that if people push back, even through Ghostbusters, remember that woke nonsense Ghostbusters with the all-female comedians that nobody wanted to see and nobody watched because it was crap? The audience pushed back, and then they came back with an actual decent Ghostbusters movie that was really good, and I enjoyed it. And I don't know if it had woke nonsense in it. I didn't notice any, but it was a good movie. So the audience pushed back, and then the property responded. But in this case, they're silencing the online dissent because they're saying it's online trolls. No, you can't hate this. It's perfect. You're the problem. Here's the Hollywood Reporter says, where's a wizard to fight the trolls when you need one? The mega budgeted fantasy series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, The Rings of Power, is under fire from some of its viewers a day after the first 2 episodes of Amazon's billion-dollar baby debuted on Prime Video. The show's average audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is a rotten 37%, and reviews on Amazon have been outright suspended. Compare that score to TV critics giving the show a very fresh 83% average, and many of the reviews were highly enthusiastic. It's great, a grotesquely immersive and grandly ambitious spectacle packed with stunning imagery and compelling plot threads. Oh, when you leave plot to the end after mentioning the immersive grand imagery and the spectacle, you know you've got a steaming pile of garbage that somebody told you have to find the good in. Find the diamond in that rough. Okay. I mean, the sets are nice. All right, moving into protests. Signs of hope. Chilean voters voted to reject the constitutional changes that would have legalized abortion and cemented in the global warming hoax. Praise the Lord for the common sense of Chilean people. And I think that that's interesting. In a referendum, 62% of voters voted against the draft document. None of Chile's 16 regions approved it. So they don't want all of this woke nonsense. They can see how damaging it is. Here's a freedom protest in France as well. The resistance against the WEF globalist agenda is growing. Right, and I think people are identifying where the problem is specifically, although I don't know that we're identifying exactly what we need to do about it. People say, historically, this is how you solve that situation. I think modern people view themselves as more evolved than that, or that's below us. And I'm not advocating for violence. That's not what I'm saying. But people think that there is a political solution to this. And I don't know that there is a political solution. I think that it seems like there's going to be conflict. It seems like there's provocation from the government for conflict. It seems like they're making policies that would provoke conflict from farmers, from producers, from anybody who's got sense, really. And fighting a war against people who are trying to maintain the status quo seems just insane. And I don't know how it would coalesce. But at this point in time, I think there are a lot of people who think that there's a political way out of this. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't see a political way out of this. Jean Charest wins leadership. The CPC implodes. Maxime Bernier and the PPC become the de facto Conservative Party and restore Canadian governance. Do you see it? Right? I don't know. And it's just one of those things that maybe, but it seems like a long shot and probably would take at least 2 election cycles to complete the destruction of the CPC. I think people would be shit-shocked at how corrupted the party is. I think that if Charest wins, he loses less than 5 MPs. And the 5 MPs, do they go to the People's Party? I don't know that the right has that kind of sense. So we'll see. We'll see, I guess. Timothy Caulfield says, scary how the WEF's Great Reset conspiracy, which is obviously total nonsense and has anti-Semitic roots, has been normalized. Exploiting conspiracies for votes. Shameless, he says, rhetoric fuels hate, polarization, and extreme action. So this is the CBC trying to sell the idea that the whole WEF thing is a conspiracy theory, an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But when the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Rhodes Scholar reporter, Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and the opposition leader who's propping up the government and has official agreement to rule until 2025. Do you think that they're working for Canadians? Do you think that that's a conspiracy? Because that's well documented. I'm just not sure the laughing dismissal of this is warranted. And it's insane that people are so easily led by this kind of stuff. And they are. Here's Friends of Science to say, explain to us how the WEF had a global oil price shock and pandemic on their list of risks in 2006, but by 2020 had removed them and replaced them with climate change. Then what happened and who cashed in? And Greg says, interesting that Mark Carney is on the board of trustees at the WEF and also vice chair at Brookfield Asset Management. See, Mark Carney, if you picture this like a chessboard, and I'm starting to picture this like a chessboard, and each person kind of like a chess piece. So Mark Carney, they were trying to make into more public, but his teeth were too yellow. So they're keeping him as kind of a backbencher, like a bishop. He's powerful though. He'd almost be a queen, but I think you have to be prime minister, or like Justin Trudeau would be, excuse the analogy, but a queen in this situation, because he's very powerful and very nimble. He can move in lots of different situations and affect a lot of different pots, right? Mark Carney is not quite as powerful, but is still very powerful. So he's more of a bishop. He can move things, but in single directions, right? He's a finance guy. He's WEF connectors. He's holding positions or putting people in pins, right? Like he's getting situations where you can monetarily do this or this. You see what I'm saying? Maybe it's a bad analogy, but the more I see this, the more I think that the people who are playing this game really are playing a game similar to chess, with pieces that we just don't understand yet, but who have power in ways that chess is a distillation of power, right? Chess is a distillation of war, I think, and each piece has its own power, right? So I'm very clumsily articulating this, but I think there's something in that. And I think Mark Carney as an asset is a very powerful piece, but not a piece that can lead because the teeth are too yellow. Anyway, but he's got lots of positions: trustee at WEF and a vice chair at Brookfield Assets Management. So he's very, very influential, but not quite a prime minister or a president as a la Sri Lanka. Friends of Science continues. Tip of the iceberg: Greg Parker Gallant, former international banker, did a 2-part column in his many precautionary interests. Michelle Sterling read them on camera. Hilarious, if not so sad. So how deep does Mark Carney's other interests go, right? And so these guys are talking about it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting how deep these people go, how far their power extends. You don't think about boardships. How many boards do you belong to, right? How many extra things do you have time for? How could Mark Carney, who's got lots of responsibility at his job and he's making, oodles of money doing this and that and financial blah, 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 blah. How does he have time to oversee all of these other things? How can conflict of interests be overlooked by the people who are supposed to be governing in our interest? Right? When the WEF has so much influence, and these chess pieces are in positions to force countries to accept their terms or be cut off, right? How can we ignore all that? The way we can is because we don't understand what's going on. We don't understand the game, right? And this is just one example of one small bishop holding power in certain areas, and how it's obfuscated through complicated board positions, complicated layers of bureaucracy that aren't apparent. And if you started explaining them and exposing them, would look bad, but because nobody does, or if they do, they say, oh, that's crazy talk, right? That's a conspiracy theory. And then the CBC prints an article about it. So that's how they do. That's how they lie about this. That's how they continue to further their assets, because I feel like the right and people who are opposed to this don't know how to work together, don't know how to form a war room and have a year-long plan or a 2-year-long plan. Really, I don't know of anybody who's got any kind of realistic plan with a group of people who are rolling it out to. When I say that Canadians think there can be a political solution to this, I don't see another political party rolling out a plan to stop this with meaningful gaming out of, this is how they're going to respond. They're going to call us racist. They're going to call us this. They're going to call us that. I don't see any of that. I don't see any evidence of any of that. I don't even really see evidence of right-wing think tanks thinking up ways to start addressing the culture war that they're obviously losing. I really don't. People are talking about how men can become women, and people are training children to think that gender is how you feel inside. And the right can't figure out how to have the conversation and win the conversation with logic and reason, because we just keep getting shouted down by people who are more organized with a better position on the chessboard. And that's awful. And that's enough out of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out Speaking Moistly and all the interviews I do on there. Hopefully I'll be talking with Greg tomorrow. We'll see. And that's it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.